We begin in the Senate with the suspension of the lawmaker representing Bauchi Central, Senator Abdul Ningi, for 3 months. Ningi was suspended after 3 hours of debate over his interview in which he alleged that the National Assembly padded the 2024 28.737 trillion naira budget. The Senate also warned Senator Sulaiman Kau against sharing and distributing disturbing news about the Senate. Senator Olamilekan Adeola had come under orders 9, 10, 41 and 51 to move a motion of privilege and issue of national importance against Senator Nengi, who, over his interview with the British Broadcasting Corporation House of Service. Senator Adeola in his motion stated that in the January-December budget cycle, subcommittees submitted their harmonized reports to the Committee of Appropriation, and the report of the Committee on Appropriation submitted to the Senate was unanimously passed on Saturday, December 30, 2023. And the budget of 28.77 trillion naira was assented by the President, Bola Tinubu, on January 1, 2024. Let's listen to what happened on the floor of the Senate today.
Mr. President, perusing through the budget, first, we discover some bogus anomalies of repetition. We discovered some senatorial districts in this particular document. Some senatorial districts have up to 120 billion, and my senatorial district has just 2 billion. Mr. President, yes. Mr. President, in this budget, that Yari presented to you, I have facts, constituency by constituency.
Well, let's bring in the senator representing Cross River North, Senator Jariwe Agam Jariwe, who was on the floor of the Senate today. Senator, thanks for being here and joining me on Prime Time to clear up some issues. And I'd like to start with what we just heard from Senator Ningi. In addition to stating that there's some discrepancy in the budget, he also alluded to what he called some of the innermost secrets of the Senate, throwing light on some possible disparities. Like you just heard, he said some senatorial districts have over 100 billion. His has 2 billion. I could hear someone in the background saying some districts have less than 1 billion. He was talking about take-home pay of principal officers, cars, aids. Some things were repeated in the budget. How does the Senate address some of these disparities to ensure equitable treatment in constituencies, or do you agree with some of his submissions?
Well, it's as clear as crystals that there has never been a time that we had equitable distribution of resources or values to the constituencies across the country. It has never happened. So what's happening now is not novel. And that's why I stated on the floor of the Senate today, unequivocally, that while Senator Ningi raised the issue of some senators having 100 billion, 50 billion, and all of that in the budget, I also have it on good authority that while I have just my constituency provision, some senators were given projects worth 500 million in their budgetary provisions of their senatorial districts. Not that senators were given 500 million naira each, as some people are saying, speculated.
It's good to clarify that.
Yes, being speculated. The mic went off when I was still speaking, and I had not made my point.
Your mic will not go off here.
So the truth about it is that some of them had more money, more funding in their senatorial districts, and some of us had less.
And how
so there was no need for us, who are also encumbered, to go to the press to make statements that are unfounded.
And why do you think there's no need for that? Clearly, you had an issue with it because you said, if we want to express our grouse, I also have mine. So clearly, you had an issue with that. And so how are these sort of allocations determined? And is there like an oversight mechanism to determine, okay, this constituency or this district requires 100 billion and then this one requires 1 billion? So what was that grouse that you meant? What did you mean by
in Parliament, people lobby.
Okay.
And what I was trying to state was that if I want to go to equity, I should go with clean hands. For the Northern senators that decided to investigate the budget and even got a consultant to look at it, I think that they decided to do that before Senator Abdul Ningi, who is the leader of that forum, took it up. I don't think it was necessary for them to do that and even go to the press. I think it would have been brought to the floor of the Senate in our executive session, discussed. Because you discover that when the chairman of appropriations, Senator Olamileko, explained the situation, the 3 trillion that is speculated was discovered to have been captured under the GOE's Judiciary, National Assembly. Those items are on first line charge. Those are budget line items that are on the first line charge. And so it was like an optical illusion. That was a fallacy. The 3 trillion was just a fallacy. If it was brought and discussed on the floor of the Senate, even in an executive session, that would have been explained. So there was no need going to press with that story. I think that was trashed today on the floor of the Senate. And we came to terms with the fact that there was no padding of the budget by the Senate or by the Senate President, as they earlier stated. And I want to clear the air on an issue. The Senate President, as a person, is not an author of the budget, does not prepare the budget. The budget is presented by the executive as a proposal. The budget is prepared by the National Assembly. That includes the Senate and the House of Reps. So the emphasis on the Senate President is like trying to give a dog a bad name, so to kill it. And that's why I said, if there were shortcomings in the budget, then we are all culpable. It is collective responsibility.
I mean, Senator Ningi mentioned that he had gone with some other senators to the Senate President with the issues, and the Senate President agreed, stating that he told him that, look, you need to come back with more evidence before he went to the press. And now I'd like to talk about what you said about what Senator Adiola Olamipekun explained, talking about the first line charges. You have INEC, UBEC, TED Fund, NDDC, and all that, and how that's where that 3.22 trillion, he said, was captured. Shouldn't there be a move towards more transparency when it comes to allocation of funds? Because clearly this is causing an issue. This senator says, I don't understand where 3.7 trillion naira is. So clearly there's an issue with transparency or how people understand and interpret the data that's captured in the budget or the process. Because all the senators are involved in that process. Everyone is supposed to understand where this fund's going. So shouldn't there be more to be done to increase transparency so that everyone is on the same page and we don't have issues like this?
Well, just like I stated before, if it was brought up on the floor of the Senate, even in an executive session, the explanation that was given today by Senator Olamileko, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, would have availed us an opportunity to understand, for those who did not understand where the 3 trillion was.
So you think that's sufficient enough for everyone to put this to rest? Because look, I understand that the Senate, today what happened on the floor of the Senate, all the drama, all the controversy, you had senators really, really emphasizing strongly on protecting the integrity of the Senate. Now, given how this was handled, I mean, Senator Ningi has now been suspended. Given how this was handled and everything that was trashed in the Senate, do you think the Senate, which you belong to, achieved that goal of protecting their integrity? Or do you think that the Senate already even had that integrity to protect?
Well, we are not infallible. We are humans. The Senate is an institution. And like I stated earlier, we must protect the sanctity and the integrity of the Senate. And that is why it wasn't necessary to go to press.
Okay, you keep talking about the fact that going to press, we understand that.
Yes,
there's
going to press,
channel.
there's no problem with going to the press. But when you go to press with figures that are unfounded or with allegations that cannot be substantiated, then there is a problem.
Yes, I understand. But you keep focusing on the fact that going to the press shouldn't have been the first call.
Yeah.
The first call should have been bringing it to the floor. Now,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at is, why should there even be that need to have this sort of discrepancy? It's put a crack between the people of Nigeria and the Senate or the House of Assembly as a whole. That's what I'm coming to. There's sort of that fundamental mistrust between the people and the legislature. And now there's also an argument. Critics have been saying, look, there was a hasty passage of the 2024 budget by the House of Assembly, and this may have now contributed to this current controversy that we're facing. What are your thoughts on that?
Anyway, you know, we had to hurriedly pass the budget because of our commitments to the people.
But is a budget something to be hurriedly passed?
Yes, we wanted to achieve the January to December budgetary system. And that was why we hurriedly did it. We had sleepless nights. I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, and I know we had sleepless nights. And we had to have joint committee meetings with budgetary sessions with the House of Reps. And it was the first time it was happening. And I will employ the executive to always bring the budget early enough so we can do our work in record time.
And how do you assess that budgetary process that you say you are part of appropriations? How do you assess that process, and what can be done better? You've mentioned one thing, the executive should do better to bring it in earlier. What else can the Senate do to make sure that this process is transparent? I remember one senator said, in order to improve transparency, maybe we should stop having these closed-door meetings. That's one part. What else can be done? Because we've now moved past this whole, Senator Ningi said, 3.7 trillion, it's not captured, there's no nexus, there are no projects allocated to it, no location. We're now talking about the bigger picture, because this is not the first time that the budget is being having this sort of controversy.
Well, we can only do better. We can only do better. The next budget, if it's brought early enough, we will not be in a hurry. We'll look at these issues, and then we'll have budget debates. We'll also have public hearings, and then we'll come up with a document that Nigerians will appreciate. Okay,
now let's talk about the punishment that was given to Senator Ningi, who maybe I'll call a whistleblower. It was proposed to be suspended for 12 months and then later reduced to 3 months. And the way that the Senate handled the situation on the floor today, what's your take on that approach of handling sort of a dissenting voice or someone who has an issue to present to the floor?
Well, his suspension was because of the preponderance of opinion on the matter. And the group that he represents also backed out. They denied him on the floor of the Senate today. So the voices against Senator Ningi overwhelmed him as a person. And that was why he was suspended. And in the Senate, we have our rules. And the rules were applied accordingly.
And the suspension, you think, is sufficient to the actions that he took?
The purpose of the suspension is to serve as a deterrent.
A deterrent to what?
To other people running to the press.
Wait, running to the press?
With unsubstantiated facts.
Okay. So now what you're saying, what I understand is that your main issue, and I think the main issue for most other senators was this: why did you go to the press? You're one of us. You're supposed to bring this to us. It doesn't really show that the Senate really wants to, are interested in letting the people know that, look, this did not happen. Because I think that's the most important thing here, to gain the trust of the people and let them know that.
But we're on live TV today when the chairman of appropriations explained it, and
but that explanation,
he came with the documents.
Yes,
the Appropriations Act.
Yes.
And everything that had to do with it.
Yes, I understand. And Senator Ningi came with documents as well that he was not allowed to be shown. And I've said this explanation of, look, that 3.7 trillion naira that he said was not captured is due to this, and this. It was based on the first line charges, INEC, judiciary, NDDC, and so forth. What I want to understand is, clearly, it seems rigorous. It seems like people don't understand it, which is why Senator Olamilekun had to actually take his time to go over it and explain it. Now, what I'm asking you is, the way that this was handled in the Senate, yes, you said the punishment is to deter other people not to make unsubstantiated facts. But Senator Ningi said, look, I employed some consultants and they went through this line by line, and this is what we discovered. So doesn't this put a hindrance on some other senators who may have some grouses, like you had today, to actually speak up, because their head might be on the chopping block?
Well, Senator Ningi himself discovered that the 3 trillion that was supposedly, padded, as claimed, was not actually padded, because the explanation of the chairman of appropriations, who came by a point of order, sufficed. And all the senators were impressed.
All the senators were impressed, but do you think Nigerians are impressed?
Well, Nigerians generally will always want to say the senators are not doing well and all of that. But it's as clear as crystals that there was no padding of the budget with 3 trillion.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Senator Jariwe, for joining me today on Arise Primetime.